All right, welcome back, everybody. We have made it to episode 2. I'm Austin,
And I'm Sam.
and this is the More Than Outdoors podcast, the podcast where we talk about the people, places, and passions that drive Maine's outdoor recreation economy. Um, we got a loaded show today. I think we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about, but Sam, give the viewers some insights. What do we got going on today?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to mention where we are. So we are at Lake George Regional Park in Skowhegan, actually Canaan, Maine,
Yeah.
right down the road from Skowhegan.
Yeah.
And I love that we have fishermen behind us. We seem to catch people in our podcast, which really is what it's all about and kind of what we want to share. But I think on the last episode, we dove into the things that really make us who we are, the purpose of this podcast, and something we're trying to dive into more this podcast episode is really what is Maine's outdoor recreation economy and what drives it, what is it about, why is it important? And so I think I want to start off asking some questions to kind of understand a little bit more and just jump right in because, like you said, we have a lot to cover. So,
Yeah.
what is the outdoor recreation economy and how do we define it in the context of Maine?
Yeah, I think the coolest part, and I give a lot of credit to a number of the folks across the state that are really leading this industry in a lot of ways, is there are so many different avenues you can take to be involved in this like outdoor economy, right? Whether it's you're the person that's making the gear that we're going out with, having a great time, or you're that experience provider who like you're making sure that people are getting access to different places safely and they're getting that little bit of a Maine twist, right? Like I think that's something that's so powerful about Maine's overall economy is the outdoor rec piece really gets tied into the heritage and cultural component, right? So like there's something very unique about being able to come to a place like Maine, whether you live here or not, because let's face it, there are plenty of people that don't get exposed to all of the different parts of Maine. And you get that like little local flavor and you find out about the thing that you wouldn't have found on your own or like all those different things. So you have that piece, but then there's also like, we have all of the nonprofits. I heard some statistic the other day that like Maine has one of the largest, if not the largest, percentage of like nonprofits that operate within the state and like their overall impact on like the state's economy, which I think is super interesting because a lot of those nonprofits do prioritize the outdoors, whether that's access, conservation, education, like all of those different things. So like they're also roped into this outdoor rec economy. And then you have like we just had the Maine Trails Bond come through this past year, so like that really shines the light on all of those people around the state that regardless of what the activity is that you're using the trail for, they're doing the work, right? Like, I mean, and kudos to those folks because without them, we don't have all of these amenities, right? It's one thing to just say like, oh, I'm going to walk through the woods, right? It's another thing to actually have amenities developed so that way you can safely go through them or enhance your experience, right? Because like if all of a sudden I'm building a trail for a mountain bike, it's kind of a necessity, right? Like I'm not just going down the mountain. So you have all of those different things. And then it's like, okay, also, what do we like to eat and drink, right? There are certain things like, I mean, trail mix right off the bat is like something that like so many of us have just like stashed away in a backpack no matter where we're going, right? So it's like, it's so broad. And that's what's so awesome because you have so many different people that at the end of the day, we're all tied together because we love this thing that is the outdoors. Right. So that's what makes it like so much fun.
Totally. So, I think it's interesting you brought up like the trail infrastructure, and today I actually was exploring Lake George Regional Park before we met, and I got to meet the director of the park, Daryl, and he was telling me a lot about the future and just his plans, like what he sees for this place. And I was just thinking how impressive it is to kind of see this beautiful space that we're in. I mean, it's massive. And like the direction that he wants to go to make it kind of a hub for the local community, but also to draw in more tourism. And he's, building this beautiful kind of indoor space with a fireplace, and it's gorgeous. And so that will become a hub, hopefully, for people who recreate here to go in, warm up in the wintertime, bring more tourists and more people who are recreating in the winter to be able to kind of have this indoor warming hut, and also explore the trails. So, and that wasn't it. Like there were so many other things that he was sharing that I was really inspired by, and it made me think like it doesn't all happen overnight, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of planning. And so I think there's a lot of that going on right now, which is so exciting because this outdoor recreation economy is hoping to grow in the next 10 years, and there's a plan, and that's that roadmap that we had mentioned. So we have this strategic plan. How are we going to grow our outdoor recreation economy in Maine specifically, and what are the kind of components that are going to make that happen and within the industry?
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I think you touched on this already, like the like economic value, cultural value, like all those different things. But like for someone who maybe is listening to this podcast, maybe there's one person outside of the state of Maine who finds this podcast, right? Why is outdoor rec such a significant like economic driver for rural states like Maine, right? Because we're not like we don't have New York City sitting here. Like we have Portland.
I mean, Portland is basically New York City in Maine.
Portland is a lovely city, very different scale.
Yeah, very different scale, of course. Yeah, I think it's interesting because in our state we have so many people who are living here that are recreating and coming to Maine because they want to recreate in the outdoors. And I think that that's really unique, and it's a beautiful thing. But then we also have so many people traveling to Maine to be able to experience Maine's outdoor recreation. And I think the beauty of this state is that we're trying to create spaces that really speak to both people, and that is building really vibrant communities. It's creating amazing workforce opportunities, and it's also just like it creates this hub for people to be able to travel to and experience more than just outdoor recreation, but maybe go to, I think like Norway, Maine comes to mind. Like you have this beautiful town, there are multiple shops, there's great food, but there's also Western Foothills Land Trust right in the backyard. So there's outdoor recreation, it's tied to this beautiful community, and there's an amazing art scene. So it's just this well-rounded place, and that's where people want to live.
Yeah.
They want to live there, but they also want to come and visit. So it's attracting both. Like, how do we get people who want to come and live in this beautiful place, but also come and play and spend their money and go home, which isn't, that sounds maybe not exactly what we want, but we want to have more of that sustainable future, I think, for outdoor recreation. And I hope that answered your question. But
no, I think that hits on a lot of it, and I think it really ties well to the whole concept that like you need both to be sustainable, right? You can't exclusively rely on people from out of state or out of country, right? Because we are very close to Canada. So we see a lot of tourism in that regard. The reliance can't be exclusively on that market. We also have to tap into the fact that like the people who live here sometimes also need some help getting maximum like experience out of this place too. I mean, I think about like some of the people that I went to school with when I was at UMF, and like they grew up in whatever town that they did, and then all of a sudden coming to Farmington was all of a sudden this like massive shift in their like way of life. You know what I mean? And so I think it's important to know that we need both, because unfortunately, a lot of the times in this conversation, one of those two gets neglected, and regardless of which one you choose to neglect, it doesn't end up going well when you're talking about having these massive goals like the state of Maine does
Right.
for the outdoor rec economy.
Yeah, and I've been to a lot of communities that do this well. And Norway was an example, but I think of like Bethel, Maine, and there's this huge draw to Sunday River, and it brings a lot of tourism. But then you go into like, have you ever been to the Gem Theater in Bethel? And like, it's just this community hub, and it's amazing. And there's Gould has all of these trails. There's great trail networks, and I just see. I mean, that's one example. Up in Katahdin, they have incredible access. Talk about bringing tourism to Baxter State Park. But then they have the Katahdin Gear Library, which supports the local community in getting them the things that they need to be able to use the recreation spaces there as well. I think another thing we didn't talk about is like the education component as well. And I think that's something that I'm really passionate about, is being able to educate tourists that come here and making sure that they're learning about our culture, learning about the heritage, learning about what makes Maine Maine. But then it's educating the people who live here that they live in a world-class place to recreate in the outdoors specifically. Like it is such a beautiful place, but creating the access and showing them what is available to them, that's a big deal. And what I've noticed through my work at Teens to Trails is there's a lot of students who don't have access to the outdoor spaces that are right in their backyard, don't really know about them, don't know how to go and use them. And so I think there's a big component around educating people in the outdoors that touches on the tourism and the local aspect. So
and I think like a perfect example of this. So, I've been sailing with a morning in Maine based out of Rockland twice in the last month, right? And
you're so lucky,
dude, it's awesome, right? And so we were just out there this past weekend. My parents came up from New Jersey, and we went out, and it was a great example of exactly what you're talking about, where we had like the first piece of like, okay, the sailboat gets off the dock, you start to get out into the water, they're getting everybody involved, everybody's raising sails and being part of the process and all that stuff. But then once you're out there sailing, so much of the facilitation of the experience was very education based, of like giving people the context of like, what are you surrounded by? Like, what's the story behind these things? Like, why does all of it matter? And it was a really cool twist for even someone like myself, who is a Maine resident, is heavily involved in the outdoor rec space, but like sailing off the coast of Maine is not my like niche. No one would classify it as such. And so being able to really like sit back and be able to put myself in the shoes of so many of the people that we're trying to attract, right? It was really, really valuable, and huge kudos to the folks at A Morning in Maine. They did a fantastic job.
That feels really important to me in like the direction of our outdoor recreation economy, is for tourists that are coming to the state, that they're not just like extracting, and they're really like giving back and kind of becoming a part of the culture a little bit. I know that sounds like in the perfect world that will happen, but if we can get a little bit closer to that, and I think that there's a push towards more environmental like ecotourism and making sure that people are experiencing Maine and not extracting from it. So we've talked a bit about tourism and how we're attracting different people to come to play in Maine and outdoor recreate here, but also really respecting that this is a state where people live and love to live. And I think there's a huge trend in this, and I think you'll touch on that. But do you see any data or trends that show how Maine's outdoor recreation economy is growing or where it's changing?
Yeah. So like, in addition to, I know we touched on this a little bit in the first episode, but for those of you that for whatever reason didn't watch that one yet, yes, we have all the goals that are associated with the outdoor rec economy roadmap, right? Like grow the economy by 10%, like increase the number of workers in the state to, I think it was 32,500 is the goal. But then all of a sudden, just a few months ago, the Department of Economic and Community Development in Maine throws out this awesome study, right? And they were trying to understand, like, why are people moving to Maine?
Mhm.
You know, because as we probably have more of a perspective on just based off of our jobs, right, in the workforce development kind of house, it's a huge discussion around the state, right? Like talent attraction, how are we bringing more people here, so that way they can complement the folks that we already call residents, and more than half of the people that were surveyed in this study that they ran listed outdoor rec as being not just like a cool thing to have, but like it was a strong influence on why they moved to Maine,
Hmm.
right? That goes for the person who wants to work in the outdoors or the person that's working for some tech company down in Portland and is never going to be tracked in like our system of working for the outdoor rec economy. But it matters to them,
Hmm.
right? Because they do want to have access to all of these incredible amenities when they're not at work,
Hmm.
right?
And those are the people who are traveling throughout the state to
Yeah,
recreate in different areas.
yeah,
And in some ways, they're the tourists coming into the town
right,
because they're coming from southern Maine and
right,
heading to northern Maine and trying to experience different parts of Maine.
yeah.
And I think that's a really cool thing. And that's what's kept me here.
Mm.
Like, I came here for outdoor recreation and I've stayed because I'm like, there's something new around every corner. This is probably my third time to Lake George Regional Park. And I love it here. There's like mountain biking opportunities, there's fishing, there's swimming, there's paddling,
Yeah.
there's loads of trails to go hiking. Like, I think of the reason why I'm staying here is because I feel like there's something new constantly, and there's always some new place I want to go try out
Yeah.
and play in. I know I say play all the time, but like I love to play
But it's what
outside.
we do. It's
Yeah,
what we do, right?
totally.
And like I mean, not to go back to my weekend plans a whole bunch, but like it was the same thing. Yes, we had like the Rockland experience that I already talked about, but then the following day we went to Lubeck because my mom is a huge sea glass person, so like I feel like sometimes that's like its own bracket of tourism. Like people are just like coming to find this stuff, right? Um,
What a
and
way to spend time outside, though, right?
yeah,
Like walking the beach
yeah,
and getting to see a new scenery, getting to enjoy a new town.
yeah, and like Colleen and I have been to Lubeck before, but like we didn't hit the areas that we hit when we got this like super secret treasure map from one of the people that Colleen works with at Skowhegan Savings, and so it was a totally different town, like
Hmm.
nothing like the last time that we were there, and then you get to meet people like you talk about like the culture and heritage piece, like we stop at this little place called Monica's Chocolates right on the road, like coming into Lubeck.
I think it's the chocolate and maybe the mustard or something that's like famous up there.
Yeah, and
So,
like it was amazing to like walk into this woman's shop, and um she previously lived in Peru, and her husband and her moved up to Lubeck, Maine, of all places, right? And she like tells the story about how way back when she like wanted to get involved in this competition that they were like doing a chocolate making competition. She had never made chocolate before, but she
wow.
like enters this competition. And so then all of a sudden she wins, and it like just skyrockets this career for her in making chocolates and all other kinds of things. Um, but like that's an example of the culture piece of, yeah, I went into the shop and like we bought some chocolate and all of that, but I'm not going to remember that store because of the fact that I bought a chocolate lobster,
Unless
right?
the chocolate lobster was really
Well,
good.
fair. It was. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty good. It did not make it all the way home, but I'm gonna remember that place because of the fact that she literally walked out of the back little kitchen area of her shop and started just talking to us.
Hmm.
Um, and even though I said like, "Oh yeah, I'm from the Waterville area," I was still a tourist. You know
Totally.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And they did such a great job of just like making us feel like we were at home.
Oh,
You
and
know.
that's the culture of Maine, and that's
Yeah.
the beauty of it. And I think why people want to come here, and hopefully they leave feeling that kind of shared experience and just that passion for where they live.
Yeah.
Like loving where we live is another piece of it all. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think as we're looking at, you know, like we talked about, Maine's Maine's outdoor rec economy made up $3.4 billion, um, and I think it was something like 3.7% of like the total state GDP, which I think makes us a top 6 state in the country in terms of like the percentage that our GDP is made up of outdoor rec.
yeah.
Um, and we want to,
Like that's a big deal,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like especially we want to grow in the next 10 years, like that's a big deal.
yeah,
And I think that's what we're celebrating right now.
yeah,
And that's been a part of this roadmap launch is like, hey, look at us and how far we've come.
yeah,
Let's see. And I think a part of this podcast too, like, let's see what's already happening and where they want to go.
yeah,
I want to come and talk to Daryl at Lake George Regional Park and learn where he wants to go and where this
yeah,
park is, like, what's going to happen in this park in the next 10 years.
yeah,
And that's really exciting. So,
yeah, yeah,
thanks for sharing those numbers because I think it's important for people to hear and understand that it's a lot. It's a big deal,
yeah,
and some of it is the what makes up that 3.4 billion is in industries within the outdoor recreation industry that you wouldn't even think of, like birding
mm,
or RVing
mm-hmm,
or ATVing,
mm-hmm,
and there's some outdoor ways to outdoor recreate that I don't necessarily dabble in, but I see the value in it. And I also see that it's another part of Maine's culture. In different parts of the state,
mm-hmm.
there's different interests in different outdoor recreation.
Yeah,
And that's really cool. We have different parts of the state that has different cultures. Like you drive up to Rangeley and you walk into a pub and there are going to be racks for snowmobile helmets.
mm-hmm,
And that is normal. Like
yep,
that. And whereas you go and you're recreating in Portland and it's like, oh, there are bike paths everywhere. Where you want to go biking up in Rangeley, good luck, unless you're mountain biking.
right, right, right.
So, why should Mainers and policymakers care about investing in this space?
Yeah, and it's, I think we've already hit so many different nails on the head with this, but it's like we've talked so much like economic value, right? But it's also okay, we go back to that study that DECD did, right? Those people who aren't working in the outdoors, but they are moving here, they're recreating like on their lunch break, right? Like just to like give them a nice reset of like whatever stress I just dealt with in the morning, we're gonna take a breath from that for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and that has impact on how someone is going to actually live their life, right? And I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not going to pretend to understand, um, the ins and outs of all of that. But we know that there is an effect there.
Well, I'll
You
just
know.
say, because you experience it every day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we both go outside because it makes us feel better.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of data behind it. I
Mm-hmm.
actually have looked it up and researched it because I really want to be an advocate for
Mm-hmm.
students and them spending time in the outdoors for the benefit of their mental and physical health. So I know that it's there, but I also feel like I believe it because of my own experiences.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who are listening can resonate just the same.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for us to be thinking about how can we invest in this space because everything costs money and there's a lot of value to outdoor recreation in Maine, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And it's expensive to create the infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's expensive to start the businesses. It's expensive to educate and inform people on how to spend time in the outdoors in
Mm-hmm.
Maine and how to do it safely for their own good, but also for our land and the places that we spend time in.
Yeah.
So I think some of that we're seeing the investment in like the Maine Trails bond being passed.
Yeah.
But like these are the things, this is the policymakers that are paying attention
Mm-hmm.
and they're realizing, oh, look what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is impactful and we need to pay attention.
Yeah.
Outdoor recreation is it. And it's not the only thing, but
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah, totally. Well, and there are a lot of dollars that are going into a lot of places, and I mean, right now, I think the most recent number that we have is, there's over 30,000 people that are employed in the industry
Mm.
too, right? So like that has its own ramifications of like, you have to go off of the policymaker side, that's a lot of people who are your constituents who rely on this,
Mm.
for some form of their income, right? Because we get it. There's plenty of people that work in the outdoors in some part-time capacity because they want to and because they enjoy it, right?
Or they're retired.
Or they're retired.
That was
Yeah.
something we had talked about. Is like 31% are over the age of 55,
Yeah.
and so that brings in the whole other component of workforce development
Yeah.
and educating younger people that this is a career path in Maine's outdoor recreation.
Yeah.
So I work with a lot of older people who are very wise in passing on
Yeah.
their legacy and what they know, but I think it's in educating younger people, showing them that this is a pathway to make a living.
Totally.
So
Totally.
sorry to interrupt you there.
No. We're having a conversation. This is a podcast. It's not an interview. And I think we've hit on a lot of different things, and I think this is a good segue to kind of jump into our Voices from the Summit segment, which today happens to be from the water.
Remix. Voices from the waterway.
Yeah. So we're going to kick this one off today. What's one innovation in outdoor rec that you're like, this is a game changer for Maine? Anything that comes to your head?
Ooh. A game changer for Maine. Oh, I think during COVID, we saw a lot of outdoor recreation blow up. And the infrastructure couldn't quite handle it. And then the amount of people who are kind of coming in, the infrastructure isn't ready for them. And so I would say something that I've seen as an innovation is working towards building more trail infrastructure that is sustainable, that can handle the people who are coming.
Yeah.
And I think of specifically mountain biking and how I saw that industry just completely blow up. And all the trails were like, what the? There was only like 10 people riding me before. And so it's just seen a lot of kind of devastation. And there's been a ton of work through Maine Land Trusts and volunteers through New England Mountain Bike Association. I've seen they've done a lot of work. I was on the board for Greater Portland NEMBA and just seeing what they're doing in that area. And I feel like it's a game changer for the people who are mountain biking. And there's so many things that I could say, but that's the first thing that comes to mind is just the trail infrastructure and what they're doing.
Yeah. So in a similar vein, I actually just found this out like maybe a month and a half ago that this even existed. But it's this app called the Kennebec Valley Explorer. And I think, while they're still working out a lot of kinks with it, and I think they have a good path in terms of like how to really get it to full market value, I guess. I see it as a huge opportunity as being a model for different places in the state to be able to build out these types of apps. Like we are in 2025.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who recreate who are using their phones in 1,000 different ways.
Totally.
Right. And literally you go into this app and you just start sorting through like, okay, I'm in the Kennebec Valley region. What do I want to do? And it's just like everything's cataloged, everything's built out with these different trail like mapping options and stuff like that. And if you're comfortable with it, you can set it up where you turn your location services on, regardless of whether the app is on. So if I'm driving through the Kennebec Valley, all of a sudden I could get a notification that like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but like there's this hike that's literally a mile away from you. Like, have you ever thought about doing it?
Cool.
So it allows you to get exposed to stuff that, like, again, you didn't know that existed.
And hopefully inspire somebody to go,
Yeah.
turn around and head back.
Yeah, and I think it's important because when you're talking about, these different places, still developing a lot of the infrastructure to scale with the participation that they're seeing,
Mm-hmm.
those types of apps help spread out some of that volume,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because now, like, to give a super stereotypical answer, like, not everyone is going to Acadia National Park, right? Or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, they're going to go and see that at some point, but how do you spread them out throughout the rest of their day or their trip, so that way, A, they're getting exposed to all the things that they wouldn't have seen in the first place, but also B, now you're greatly limiting the amount of stress that you're putting on the infrastructure, both from like an outdoor rec perspective, but then also from a lodging, a food and bev perspective, like all of the additional tourism aspects
Mm-hmm.
that come with that. So
Yeah.
I would say that's been
Ooh.
like a big one for me, which is interesting.
I feel like we could talk about that all day, because I think of like technology and the
Yeah.
outdoors and how we're always trying to like kind of combat technology by going outside.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's such a useful tool,
Mhm.
and not calling technology like the villain, but using it as a resource.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of outdoor industry organizations are using apps to educate people.
Mhm.
I think when you first said that, and we'll move on to the next question, but I thought of Maine Trail Finder.
Mhm.
Awesome way to use technology to learn more about Maine trails. And then I just today was told about the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. They just launched an app, and you can literally register your boat on this app. Brilliant.
Yep.
Like, look at us being like technologically
Getting efficient, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting efficient.
Especially when a lot of people who live in Maine are pretty old, and so we're moving towards the future.
Totally.
So.
Yeah. So, all right, next rapid fire question. What's one underrated outdoor rec activity that you think more people in Maine should try?
Nordic skiing, cross-country skiing. I have really got into it, and I found there's so many trail networks all over the state. And what I love is that just like some guy created something to like attach to their sled, and then they're just snowmobiling around making all these trails for their community.
Yep.
And once you buy the equipment, that's all or you can buy, like, there's so many other places too that a lot of them give Nordic skis for free, which is a really awesome resource.
Yeah.
But there's just like so many trails that you can go out, and it's really affordable, and it's such a great way to experience nature, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Nordic skiing.
Yeah.
What about you?
Stand-up paddleboarding, I feel like, does not get enough hype. Like, we have a lot of water activities that happen in Maine, and I know I know you're a big like canoe person and stuff like that.
Sea kayaking. I do dabble in stand-up paddleboarding.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think it's like, I've done all three: canoeing, kayaking, and stand-up paddleboarding. I just love the like additional physical challenge of you're working like the entire time. And I know that's like the complete opposite of why some people do outdoor recreation. But I love it. Like, we'll do it a bunch. Like when I'm over in Lake Winnipesaukee in the summertime for one of our vacations that we do. And it's like just so peaceful to just like jump on the board and just like take a paddle around the island.
And
like,
inflatables too.
Yeah, we have an inflatable. It's game changer.
You just throw it in the back of your trunk rather than needing to strap it on. It's not as heavy. It's just that's great. It is a little more expensive than the investment of a Nordic skis, but
true. But
it's it's a summer, fall, spring, where mine's very weather dependent.
Yeah, and a lot of gear libraries are starting to have them, right? Like we have some at Mainly Outdoors right at UMF. So
cool.
that is a variable.
Good to know.
That is a variable.
So what's one way you've seen outdoor recreation directly boost local job opportunities?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of really great examples across our state, because I think a lot of people understand how much outdoor rec matters and how much it can really be a driving force. And I think of Carrabassett Valley is like a perfect example, of, you know, Sugarloaf is obviously a huge employer when it comes to that area,
Yeah.
and um, it's really interesting to be on the inside of that operation and like get to watch how Sugarloaf and the town really work together in a lot of different ways. It's that symbiotic relationship, right?
Mm.
Like, one cannot survive without the other, and we're not here to fight over who would fail first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just focused on going forward and trying to create as many incredible experiences as we can, and this is something we've talked about off the podcast, but I think it becomes a larger discussion of, similar to the residents and tourist model. You also have, when you're coming into these towns like this, you have employees that you have existing in those towns, right? And then you have the people that are coming to recreate there. That's a whole nother like separate category, you
Mm.
know and really seeing how the town has jumped in a lot of different ways to, make sure that Sugarloaf has the support that they need, both to expand their operation in different ways, whether that's through the West Mountain expansion project. They're adding, I think, another 9-hole course potentially for their golf course,
Wow.
right? So like that has some huge plays, but then it's also like, I know there's a lot of discussions around like workforce housing in
Mm.
in the valley,
Mm-hmm.
and how we can try to create a different level of accessibility than what currently exists right now, because
Yeah.
it's challenging, right? As someone who lives it,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well,
you know,
especially I think of the seasonality of
yeah,
working in the outdoors and at a mountain like Sugarloaf. And I know that they have a bike park that they're opening. But I've learned a lot about Sugarloaf and how they've worked with other or businesses rather in Maine to make it so that their employees have year-round work. Am I
yeah,
remembering that right? Do you
yeah.
know a lot about that?
Yeah, so it's certainly not like super structured. Like, there's no like statewide plan around it. But there are definitely a lot of conversations around it. The wrench that oftentimes gets thrown into it is revolving around the housing, though, right?
Yeah.
Because even when you have the person who, say you go and work at Sunday River, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you work there from, let's say, November or December until April, right? Well, now it's like, okay, what are you transitioning to in mud season,
Mm.
right? Because it is just that, right? Um, you know, there are certain parts of the summer economy that aren't quite up and running yet,
Mm-hmm.
so it becomes a more like, what specific roles are you filling?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Well,
then
and it's
having the housing
maybe
built in.
like I remember hearing about it, and it was like maybe instead of staying in the area, they're commuting and living somewhere else,
Yeah,
like Booth Bay,
yeah,
and working for Maine Kayak
yeah.
and being a sea kayaking guide.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting to think about how can we support our employees year round,
Hmm.
and how can we kind of like help them be that like helping hand into
Yeah.
the next thing, so then they want to come back because they feel supported.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally. What about
so
you? What's a local area that you've really seen some impact happening?
we're doing bad with this rapid fire.
It's okay. Doesn't matter.
But I'm really enjoying this
Yeah.
conversation. So, um, I I see it in so many areas that we've already talked about today, and I think like the Norway, Maine comes to mind. The Katahdin region
Yeah.
comes to mind because like just experiencing it this past winter. I went up there and did like a Nordic skiing day at oh shoot, Penobscot River Trails.
Mhm.
And I met with Mike from OSI
Mm.
there, and Steve from Resurgam Forestlands. He has a hip camp there. And I was just kind of seeing this community of young people
Mhm.
who live in Millinocket, which is so rural.
Mhm.
And they have this thriving community, and they get to experience the outdoors in Maine like no other. Like, it
Yeah.
is gorgeous up there, and they get to live there year round, and
Yeah.
they're making a living
Yeah.
in doing it. And I know that I'm sure they've had their trials and
Sure.
tribulations, but I was just kind of experiencing the different businesses that they're working for, the different components of outdoor recreation, and that there are opportunities there.
Yeah.
And especially the Katahdin Gear Library, talk about like talk about a business that's tied to the local community. The Katahdin Gear Library is such a community effort, but it has a bakery in the back of the
Yes.
gear library, which I also think of like Maine Gear Share,
Yeah.
and there's Skowhegan Gear Library
Yep.
that's right in the
Yep.
back of Joe's
Yep.
Market, and like there's always some component of outdoor recreation that's tied to like a baked good
Yep.
or
Yeah. We
or
need food.
art.
We need food
Yeah,
all
we
the
want to
time.
go ride a bike and then get a brownie
Yeah.
after. So
Yes.
Katahdin region, I think they're doing a great job, and it's there's a lot of places that are drawing people for
Mhm.
workforce in outdoor recreation.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Um, what's one surprising fact about Maine's outdoor rec economy that you feel like just blew you away?
Mm. Well, I think when I'm talking about my career in the outdoors with friends and family that are out of state, they don't, and honestly, even people who live here in Maine, they don't know that there's a licensing structure to becoming a Maine guide. And so they think when you're guiding, you're just hired by a business
Mhm.
and anybody can go and do it.
Yeah.
And it's very unique here in Maine that we do have this state required licensing to be eligible to guide people and get compensated to take people into the outdoors, whether it's hunting, fishing, sea kayaking, paddle
Mhm.
boarding, canoeing, backpacking. There's
Mhm.
so many things you can do, but that's always kind of a unique thing that I'm really proud of. I was just bringing somebody to Rangeley this past weekend, and I talked about Fly Rod Crosby, and I was like, she was the first female
Mhm.
Maine guide. She was the first Maine guide, and she was a woman. Like, how
Mhm.
cool is that? And I was saying that she has a trail up there, and that there's a massive history and heritage.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of controversy, I guess, or and not everyone loves that structure, and I totally understand
Mhm.
that viewpoint, but I do think that that's a unique thing in Maine, and I think the educational trip leader permit requirement for educators working for institutions,
Mhm.
taking students out, that's a whole other thing that's new, and people are learning about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's unique and kind of surprising.
Yeah.
What about you?
I I think just the fact, I mean, I know I threw out the data point earlier, but like just the fact that even for someone like myself who has worked in the industry for my entire life,
Mm.
when I first heard that number, that outdoor rec is $3.4 billion, I was just like, you think about it and you're like, oh yeah, like of course the number is that high because like we see the impact that it
Mm-hmm.
has. But when you really start to like sit back and look at that and go, like, that's huge, and the people that are being impacted by that on a day-to-day basis is absolutely amazing. And you know, no matter how long this podcast goes, I don't think we're ever going to end up in a situation where like we have all of the stories being told, you know. So yeah, that's that. And then um what's one challenge in Maine's outdoor economy that you're excited to be a part of overcoming?
Ooh, well, I think some of our conversation today has been around educating people who recreate in the outdoors.
Hmm.
And I think that that is a challenge. I think that I was having a great conversation hiking up with Rumford High School students this Friday in the White Mountains. And I was talking to one of the teachers about how backcountry skiing is blown up. And there's been a lot of people that have got into backcountry skiing and then find themselves in places that they probably shouldn't be because
Mm,
they haven't got that far in understanding like really what it takes to truly be in the backcountry and what are the things that we need to be thinking about and what's my skill set, am I going to be capable of doing this. There's so much around that, but
yeah.
I was thinking a lot about this like education component to that, and that we're making things in the outdoors more accessible. My hope is more inclusive to people who don't have the same backgrounds as I do,
Mhm.
making it a place that anybody feels welcome.
Mhm.
That's really important. So I think the education and the inclusivity of the direction of outdoor recreation, I'm jazzed about being a part of that. And I can see it going far for our state. I've already seen it go leaps and bounds from when I started working in the outdoor recreation industry. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's, I'm sure that this is just the number one thing that comes to my head because I have a bias in where I work and the work I do. Um, but like I take that, that statistic that you threw out earlier where it was like 31% of the workforce is 55 plus, and you start to just go, hey, hopefully we have those people in the industry for a really, really long time,
yeah.
right? Um, but at some point we have to start to look at like how do you backfeed that,
Mm.
to make sure that there aren't any gaps because the people are still coming. They
Hmm.
still want the experience. They still want, that LL Bean boot that makes sure that their feet are dry or whatever. Um, and I think I'm so excited to be part of a place that is, hopefully developing those people that are going to really help lead the industry in the decades to come. I think, uh, I said this the other day when I was at a Maine Outdoor Brands event, but um, I'm super jazzed because we're we have the incoming class that's coming to UMF in the fall. um, it's the largest Orba class like since pre-pandemic, um, and that's just 1 year into us like building all this momentum behind the outdoor rec hub and all that kind of stuff, and seeing like, okay, that can we duplicate that,
Mm.
and can we continue to see that level of growth because we know we need it, like, and we need to be sending people out into all of these different avenues of the industry that we've been talking about all day, is it's so broad,
Hmm.
so like, that for me, that's it, like just being able to see my impact on the people that are going to be driving the industry in the future.
Hmm.
Hopefully I'm included in it, but
Oh, you already are. I mean, yeah, you already are.
yeah. Well, that's a wrap.
That's a
Episode
wrap.
episode number 2. Um, so if you've made it this far, greatly appreciate you sticking around to the end of the podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Give us a follow on Instagram. All of those More Than Outdoors podcast. And I would be curious, if you're seeing this on Instagram or on YouTube, like throw us a comment. Like what's one of the questions that we asked? What's your opinion? Chime in.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that are really interesting about Maine's outdoor recreation economy in Maine. And I want to hear from so many people. And I think I'm constantly learning. And we both are constantly learning the more that we explore the state, the more we network.
Yeah.
And so share what you think.
Yeah. And I think another thing, not just share what you think, but who do you want to see on the podcast?
Ooh,
Right?
that's a
Like
great
who
question.
who are those guests that you're like, "Oh my gosh, my cousin who works in such and such, they should be talking with Sam and Austin on the More Than Outdoors podcast."
Yeah, because soon it won't just be us chatting,
Yeah, at some point it won't just be
even though
it
this
won't
is
just
pretty
be us.
fun.
Yeah, no, hey, this is super fun. We can do this all day. But yeah, so that's a wrap.
Yeah, see you next time.